get started, it looks like everybody is saying number one is their biggest challenge so far. And that is actually in line with what people said on my very, very scientific LinkedIn poll, which most people are having the most trouble identifying prospects, or at least that's the part of this process that's the most difficult for you. Bill, good to see you also. Glad you're here.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm catching up here.
Okay. Yeah, if you have downloaded the workbook, that's great. If you haven't, it's in the chat window. You might need to scroll up just
a bit. It's printing out right now.
Oh, fantastic. Great. Good to see you. So we may have some other people joining, and we'll just, John, if you could remind them in the chat window to download the workbook, if you don't mind.
Paula, where is the workbook? I don't have an email for it.
It's in the chat window.
It's not in my chat window.
Okay, it's at the top of the chat window. You might have to scroll back. There's a few other chats and things.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, yeah.
The chat window for this presentation? I don't see anything in the chat.
You don't see anything in the chat? Okay.
Really?
Hey, Michael, good to see you. Okay, we've had
a couple here.
All right. That is interesting. Is there anybody else seeing the chat?
Yeah, I don't see it either.
It's all the way at the top. It's from Paula Williams to everyone.
Yeah, at the top of my chat window says Mark.
The first message I see in the chat is a message from John at 1:02 saying, please download the workbook and print.
Okay, if you can scroll up some more to see previous messages.
There's nothing to scroll. That's the first message in the window.
Gotcha. Okay. It's possible that if, maybe it doesn't show that until you come in. So let me see if I can add that one more time. So,
yeah, probably a good idea.
Yeah. It's also in the appointment, but if that is helpful, that prospecting live workshop.
At least Zoom works for me today. That's a plus.
That is a plus. Yep, we love it when technology works.
Yeah, well, there was a while when I couldn't get it to update.
Okay, cool. So that is uploading. Hopefully that will show up for everyone. And we are going to be doing a couple of things where you may want to be taking notes and things like that. So totally up to you. And also if you wanted to close your other windows and multitasking is highly, highly overrated. So if we can focus on this, I think if we can all get better at prospecting, it will do so much good for our organizations and things like that, because it's one of the hardest things and also one of the most profitable things. So the agenda for today, identifying or prospecting goals, of course, first, and then identifying prospects, which I think everybody said was their number one out of those four topics that they're the most interested in. So we'll spend a little bit more time on that. Number two, getting attention. Number three, strategy and conversation building and building rapport. That's my hardest because I have a hard time once I get on the phone with somebody I don't know. What the heck am I going to say, right? So that's hard for me. Making an offer for the next step. So whether that's a free consultation or a demo or, whatever that offer should be. And then last, of course, we have a special offer for those of you who are not in our marketing lab yet, but should be. So we'll go there. And we've got a small group, so feel free to jump in anytime something isn't working or you can't hear or a question comes up or anything like that. Feel free to jump in and we'll just try to manage the chaos as we go through. So cool.
Fine.
All right. Okay. Fantastic. So I think most of the problems that people run into with prospecting is that they expect too much from this phase of the sales process. This is just the first step. And actually today we're talking about the first two steps, prospecting and approaching, because that's those two skills are really closely related, and one's really no good without the other. But if you are expecting to make sales right off the bat, you're putting way too much pressure on yourself and way too much pressure on your prospect. Most of us are selling B2B, high ticket, complex products and services. And so, when we're looking for a prospect, we want to identify a goal that's realistic for just this phase, right? Okay. So if you've done this right, you will have found a person that has the money, authority, and need. We use the not politically correct acronym, and I need another one that is politically correct acronym of MAN, right? Money, authority, and need. That just makes it easy to remember. So if you find somebody who has those three things and you've started a relationship that everybody feels good about, and you have invited them to take the next step in your sales process, then you have succeeded at prospecting, right? That's it. That is all we need to do at this phase. So our objective is to have a full pipeline of qualified prospects within 90 days. So that's all we want from prospecting. Does anybody disagree? Anybody have any alternate opinions or other thoughts about this?
No.
No? Okay.
Good to go so far.
So, Paula,
Yeah.
real quickly, I don't disagree with anything, but for me, actually the hardest part is managing the pipeline and the follow-up. Do you have recommendations, or will you cover it at some point on how to manage the pipeline?
Yeah, this section, the holding pattern, the one that's upside down, that's the one that we need to talk about most probably with you. And we are not actually planning to cover that today. So I hate to disappoint you, but we're actually on these first two phases today. But yeah, the holding pattern is very important, and you can do all the prospecting in the world. If you drop them here, then we're screwed. You might as well not have done it. We just wasted a lot of time and money. So yes, that is very important, and we'll touch on it. And if we have time at the end of this workshop, we'll cover a little bit more, just because that you're interested. But yeah, that was not our intention today. Was just to cover these first two phases.
And that's fine. I just, for me, it's there's lots of people that are interested, or we have a nice initial discussion, but it's making sure that it stays warm and that we move to the final close. Exactly.
So, we've got a good approach plan. The holding pattern is where we need to put in some work. But, from the prospecting phase, you're going to get a very few people that say yes, yes, I'm ready to buy right now, and those are almost accidental. You're going to get a larger number that say, no, I'm not interested in your product or service. And you're going to get the largest number of people that say not yet, either not yet from your side, as for you, Michael, or not yet from their side, as it is for probably most of the rest of us, where they need to get the money together, they need to get the schedule together, they need to get their people to all agree, whatever the not yet reason is, that's when they go into the holding pattern. So the result of all this that we're talking about today is that holding pattern. Cool?
As a matter of fact, typically they'll say, most sales teaching organizations will say 20% of the people you contact can't be sold to, 20% don't need to be sold to because they got to buy, and your job is in the other 60%. Right.
Exactly. And this is where all the money is made in the aviation industry, is in this holding pattern, because most people don't buy right away. They will need some amount of time to stay engaged with you and to learn more and to get through those negotiations and things to get to the sale. So not to be disappointing, but we're only talking about those first two phases today. And that is actually where most people fall short. They don't have a full pipeline. So if we've got a full pipeline, then we're doing really well. Okay. Yes, no, or not yet. All of those are successful responses to the prospecting situation. So we want the most qualified not yets in our pipeline. Okay. What we don't want is just as important as what we do want. So what we don't want, and especially in the aviation industry, we have a very narrow pool of prospective customers, a very narrow group of people who have the money, authority, and need for our product or service, because most of us are selling a very specialized product or service. So if there are only, and we've actually had a client that had 68 potential customers because she did repossessions of a specific type of aircraft. So there were only 68 of them that were out in the world in a financial situation where they would need to be repossessed. So 68 potential customers. You can make a living from that if you make enough money off of each of those transactions. But what you can't afford to do is to turn off any of those people, right? Because there are so few of them, you can't afford to, what is the word? Give them a bad first impression, make them avoid your phone calls, make them feel like, I don't want to talk to this person. And those kinds of things. And the way that we do that, the way we give them that icky feeling of, I don't want to talk to this person, is you approach them with a cookie cutter type of a situation where, you're sending them a DM in their LinkedIn that says, hey, fill in the blank. I'm inviting you to this event that you may or may not be interested in, or are you interested in NFTs or blockchain, or something that's completely not having anything to do with your profile. So if you use a cookie cutter approach, you're very likely to turn these people off. Most high net worth and ultra high net worth people have a very low tolerance for wasting their time. So we want to make sure that we're doing our homework before we do an approach. Another way that we do this is by talking about ourselves or our product before we know that they're interested. David Sandler used to call that spilling your candy in the lobby before you even know that they want it. You want to make sure that you are talking to people who are interested or are in a position where they need your product or service before you start dumping data on them. And then the third way is by asking for too much too soon. So if you start pressuring them for a 1-hour sales presentation, let me come in and do a sales presentation for your organization, and they don't even know if this is a good fit, and you're asking them to risk their reputation by inviting you in and arranging the time of everybody in their organization, you're asking for too much, too fast. And, all of those things are likely to give them a bad first impression and turn them off. And we don't want to do that because we have so few prospective qualified prospects. Okay, so next page, this is actually page 4 in your workbook. You want to think about identifying the type of prospects that you want. And all of these things or none of these things, I would suspect at least 4 or 5 of these things are going to be factors for you. Even if you're looking for anybody with a pulse to buy your product, you are going to have some idea of what is your ideal prospect looking like. And I know some of you guys already have very detailed reports on this. You've got your potential customer avatar very specifically outlined, and so you'll have no problem with this whatsoever. Some of you guys may not have thought about it, and some of you guys may have several different prospect groups. So for the purpose of today, I want you to think of your most likely or most profitable customer group. And while you're doing that, while you're filling that in your workbook, I'm going to talk about why you only need 10 prospects, because some of you guys have lists of thousands, and that's great. Prospecting is not the same as advertising, right? So you could be sending thousands of emails a week to your list. That is advertising. That is not prospecting. I do that, but I don't consider that prospecting. But what I can do is pick 10 people who have clicked on a link in one of the emails that I've sent. Those may be prospects for me. Those may be people that I can spend this kind of time on. So the reason we want 10, the reason we want to build a top 10 list is because 10 is a small enough number to really devote the time to make this a conversation and not just a blast. You want to find out as much about them as you want them to know about you. Stephen Covey's old saying, seek first to understand. We really want to get to know our prospects before we even approach them. And before we ask them for their time, we want to make sure that we know as much about them as we want them to know about us. You can customize, you can tailor your approaches, you can do all of those things. If you only have 10, this becomes so much easier. John, you had something to say?
Well, I've got a friend of mine in Canada that does sales, and we were talking about it the other day, and he said that he's primarily, this is probably oversimplification, but he's interested in the relationship. So if they aren't ready to buy, he says, that's okay. We'll go ahead and keep talking as long as they have the time.
Yeah.
On subjects that they like and get to know the guy or girl, and get a time where you can talk to them later.
Right.
But sometimes they're going to be willing and ready to buy.
Exactly. So that is absolutely correct. And, a salesperson may end up having his business change. A lot of us had that happen during COVID and things like that. Our businesses changed from one business model to another, or something about the product or service that we offer may change, or we may change companies. We take our prospects with us. We take those relationships with us. And if you have a great network in the aviation industry, from building those 10 at a time, you can do, and these are turning over constantly, because you may find out that somebody on your top 10 list is not the right person to talk to, or they tell you no, or whatever. You replace that person in your top 10. So you've got top 10 on your whiteboard, or whatever it is that you use, that you look at every day, at any given time. And those are the people that you're pursuing, right? And then also you close sales. So you replace that person on your top 10 prospect list. So is anybody already doing this? You can answer yes in the chat window, or you can let me know if you're thinking something in particular about that. Or no?
Yes, I'm trying to do these things. I've been in sales a good number of years, 25, 30 years.
Okay.
But I find the aircraft industry to be somewhat unique.
Yes.
I'm trying to sell and reach commercial airlines with products. And there's a big chain, and there's a lot of different positions that might touch that decision.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of walking carefully.
Yes.
Trying to understand each prospect and what their role might be, and who they might be having to listen to or take direction from.
Right.
And I feel like I'm being a little tentative, but I don't know if in this case slowness isn't a virtue, because I think rushing in too fast to any of these people wouldn't merit anything.
That's absolutely right. You can't afford to alienate any of these folks. And in your case, it's going to be the challenge, because you may know, the top 10 airlines that use the types of airplanes that you are after, but then getting down to those individuals who are the most qualified to purchase that aircraft, or to purchase that item that they use for that make and model of aircraft is interesting.
I call those the gatekeepers.
The gatekeepers, exactly. Right. And you may find out that you get past the gatekeepers once you get their trust. So you may have all gatekeepers on your top 10 list in the first month that you're in business, and then those evolve into the people that those gatekeepers are protecting after you earn their trust and you provide good information and you build those relationships over time. Jean does a top 6 list. I think that's brilliant, because that's even more specific. And then, as a prospect falls off the list, revisit the warm ones left behind. That's brilliant. Very, very smart. All right. So how are we doing on our worksheet? Is anybody having any trouble with that, or anybody want to dig more deeply into any of these factors as far as defining your top most wanted prospects? Okay, I'm going to assume that we are all set, and so we're going to move on. Okay, so you know who you're looking for, or at least you know the characteristics of who you're looking for. Now you have to find them. So what I want you to do is go to page 5 on your workbook and circle at least 3 of these sources of prospects. Or if you have others that aren't on the list, let me know what those are. And then, drop them into the chat window. We are going to spend a little bit of time on the ones that you're the most interested in. Okay, Michael's working on narrowing and refining the ideal customer persona. So that's something we still have to do for you. And I agree with that. And you've probably got several different types of personas that we're going to have to define. Phone calls is not on the list. Right. Well, that's because we have to figure out who we want to call, right? So, this is the sources of prospects, not necessarily how we're going to approach them. But good point, Jean. You're absolutely right. Incoming phone calls, people call you. If your website is doing its job, you are getting leads through your website, or either with messages or phone calls or emails. FAA registry lists, that's a good one as well. JetNet and AirPack are the cheap not cheap, but easy way to do that. The expensive but easy way to do that. Multiple listing service provides 92% of your prospects. Okay, depending on which industry you're in, you're going to find a lot of these things are the case.
I was having a difficult time finding, trying to combine my internet, email, whatever contact with direct mail. I was having a hard time finding complete addresses, but I found a website that's maybe my entry to that. Kind of I don't know. Are you familiar with Fiverr?
Yeah, Fiverr. That's a great place to find people to do research and data collection, things like that.
I'm trying to get that information, and then that'll give me a step forward.
Excellent.
I don't know what your history is, but I'm kind of old school, and I almost feel like I have to give them something tangible other than a parting email or contact that evaporates, I call it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to have a mixed approach of mail and email and other contact when I can get engagement on the internet.
Right. Agreed. Okay. All right. It looks like we've got some interest in ChatGPT, some interest in, I think I saw LeadFeeder. We've got some interest in, the FAA lists, the other things, multiple listing services and other things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and see where we go from here. All right. So now that you've got your prospects and you've got their information, from one of these sources or one or more of these sources, and we're going to talk about, in fact, before we get here, we're going to choose a weapon about how to approach them. So there are two things. One is identifying your prospect and researching your prospect, which is where we were just a minute ago. And then there is how do you approach them, which would be things like direct mail, to answer your question, Bill. So we'll get there in just a second. But before we do, we're going to take a couple of little field trips into ChatGPT and LeadFeeder and LinkedIn, since those were the ones that people seem the most interested in. And if we have time to do anything else, we certainly will. All right, so LeadFeeder is one of my favorites. This is one that is included in our marketing lab. So if you are at the gold level or higher, you already have this on your website. When someone visits your website, you can see, if I wanted to see who from this company had visited my website, most of the time it will tell me just person number one. It's not going to tell me the individual because I don't have that much information on any particular individual. And a lot of people have security on their systems that won't let me identify a particular individual. But I can see, and I don't know if this is big enough for anybody to see what we're doing here. Are you guys able to read this okay? Is that?
I can see it.
Okay, fantastic. So I don't know who at this company, well, let's do Southern Sky, for example. I don't know who at this company has visited my website, but I do know that they're interested in promos for charter marketing. They're interested in MRO marketing, those kinds of things. Southern Sky Aviation just happens to be one that I don't know that much about. So I'm going to go ahead and just click LinkedIn. And then I can see, and everybody has access to LinkedIn, whether you have LeadFeeder or not. From this point forward, everybody is on the same page. You can look at this company and say, who do I know that works here? I can click this, and then I can change my filter options here. And I need to move some things so that I can see what I'm doing. So I'm going to look for first, second, and third degree connections. And I'm going to look for people who are interested in marketing because that's what I sell. So this helps me identify who at Southern Sky Aviation is the most likely to be interested in my product or service. So this is a really good way to put another name on my top 10 list. And I may already be connected to them. So, as an example, Allie Ray probably should go on my top 10 list because she's visiting my website. She's interested in our products and services. Her role is sales and marketing. This is a large enough company that I can assume they have the money. She's in a position, she's the director, so I assume she has the authority. And she's also in this position and she's looking, so I assume she has the need. That's money, authority, and need. That's that MAN acronym I was looking for, right? So Allie Ray goes on my board. Any questions or thoughts about how we did that? If I was not already connected to Allie. Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if I have LeadFeeder.
You do, Mark.
Okay. Well, I need to learn how to use it then.
Okay, we just did. All right.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I need to know how to find it.
Okay. Yeah.
We'll do that when we do office hours. I can narrow that down.
We'll walk through that again. So that'll be ideal.
Yep.
If you don't already have a relationship with this person, I'm already connected to Allie Ray. But like Kat Lilly, she is a concierge at Southern Sky Aviation. Let's say she was somebody that I was interested in connecting with. I can, and for some reason, this is just, I can just add a note saying, hey, Kat, aviation is a small world. I thought we should connect. So once again, this is a first contact, so I am not asking for too much. That was one of the things I didn't want to do. And it says unable to connect with Kat. We'll try again later. That sometimes happens. And so I'm going to have to go back and do it again. And that's the way it is.
Comment on that, if you would, a little more. On
Yeah.
your initial contacts when you're using this LinkedIn,
Mhm.
do you just throw out a general message like that? Is that your approach?
If I don't know them, so
Mhm.
I'm not connected with Kat. So that's what I did is I just said, hey, we're both in aviation. It's a small world. I thought we should connect. No sales pitch, no nothing. But if it's like Allie, somebody that I'm connected with, I don't think I have any history with her. So, my first contact with her might be to invite her to a webinar like this one. Hey, I understand that you are the director of sales and marketing for Southern Sky. I know she's interested in charter and MRO because of things that she's visited on our website. And also, another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to visit her profile and learn everything I can about her. And I'm going to show you a trick with ChatGPT in just a minute as well. So I'm going to copy her about section. So, this is a person that I would be interested in getting to know more about. She went to Gordon State College. I don't know anybody there. Let's see. She is connected, or she likes Ron Scheidt, Panera Bread, Captain Sully Sullenberger. I also follow him. Other things that I know that she may be interested in talking about. We're in 4 mutual groups. Those are these aircraft buyers and sellers, private aviation professionals, and so on. So I might approach her through one of those groups. Another thing I could do is comment on a post that she's made if she's got any. So I'm going to go here and go to her posts. And okay, yeah, she hasn't posted anything, so that's not a venue.
What kind of response rate do you get on your just open invitations like that?
When I ask somebody to come to an event like this?
Or connect or whatever.
Okay. When I ask someone to connect, if they're in the aviation industry, it's really high. I would say it's probably 75% within 2 weeks. Not everybody is on LinkedIn all day, every day. Some people only visit once a week or whatever. So chances are within 2 weeks, Allie will have accepted my connection. And if not, I'll approach her a different way. I'll send her a direct mail, or I'll send her an email or a postcard or something like that. So we're going to get into that in just a minute. As far as our approach strategies, right now we're just doing prospecting. So I'm going to actually bite the bullet and go to ChatGPT. My session has expired, of course. And I hope it's going to work. Okay. So how many of you guys are using ChatGPT? If you could answer yes or whatever your answer is there.
Oh, just heard of it.
Okay. So I'm going to say, and I copied Allie's about us, or about information from her LinkedIn profile. So I know something about her. So I'm going to say, suggest ways to initiate a conversation with Allie on LinkedIn.
What's her first name? That's all you're going to say?
Here is some information from her profile. And I'll paste in what I copied, right? And I don't know what it's going to do. Sometimes it comes out with complete garbage, right? Sometimes it comes out with things that are actually worth thinking about. Okay, so it's going to use best practices from a textbook somewhere. I'm not going to want to do any of these things right out the bat, but it will give me some good ideas about how to do this.
No matter what you use ChatGPT for, whenever it responds, never let it get off your desk before you have edited.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So
that's the AI that will write reports and newsletters for you.
Yes, that's correct. That's what this is, and it's a free tool. So this one is probably the one that I would go with. I see that you have experience with Jet Insight and various scheduling software. I'd love to hear some more about that. Or, since I'm interested in marketing, I'm going to say, something along the lines of, we both have an interest in charter marketing this year. What changes have you seen in the industry this year? So I'm going to ask for her opinions before I start in with mine. My first interaction with somebody, no matter how I do it, and I'm going to go back to the slides right now, no matter what weapon I choose, I am always going to want to start with a question, right? So whether it's in the LinkedIn DMs, whether it's by telephone, whether it's by email, we actually had somebody who was doing in-person office visits where he would actually, he lived in South Florida and could actually drop in on a lot of the organizations that he wanted to do business with. So he could just drop in to their reception desk and ask a question, and chances are he'd end up talking to somebody. Direct mail, trade show, whatever it is, your first interaction with somebody, you almost never go wrong if you start by asking them a question about themselves, about their business, about their marketing, about, whatever it is that you sell, right? You don't want to use a cookie cutter technique. That said, we have some cookie cutter techniques that we can help you with. It's sometimes nice to start with a cookie cutter just because it saves us a lot of time, and we never want to use it straight out of the box. And this is to your point, Bill. You want to make sure that you use more than one way of prospecting, right? This is an 8-step prospecting campaign. The first time we talk with anybody, we're going to be ignored. We pretty much count on it. Which is not necessarily true. When I connect with somebody on LinkedIn, and I think it's because of a lot of the authority work that we've done. If we've done that with a client and we've optimized their profile so that they look really good, they've got video on there, they look approachable, they seem like they know what they're talking about, their connect rate is going to be higher than it would be if they have no picture, and if they have nothing on their LinkedIn profile and they look like a terrorist, so that's how we want to make sure that we're getting a higher response rate on these. But either way, we're going to have a lower response rate on our first connection, no matter how we do it, whether that's an email or whether that's a LinkedIn DM or whatever it is. So this method and this method that's in our course, we use email and phone, but you could substitute any two that you want. I would suggest one expensive and one inexpensive method, or two inexpensive methods, because you don't want to spend more money on prospecting than you need to. So whether that's, yeah, go ahead.
Most of the sales training organizations around will tell you that the majority of sales are made, this is outside aviation, by the way, made between the 8th and 12th contact. And the majority of salespeople outside of aviation give up after the 3rd to 5th contact.
That's correct.
In aviation, it could go as high as 25 to 30 contacts before you make a sale.
Right. And you're making...
No, so don't give up just because you haven't contacted somebody 8 to 10 times, as long as they're still not rejecting you and they still are interested, stay there.
Right, exactly. In our course, we actually go into a lot of detail, and we have a worksheet where you can keep track of this. You can also use your CRM to say, what was your response to email number 1? What was your response to phone call number 1? What was your response to email number 2? And then you can figure out what's working and what's not. So you do this 10 times, and whether you do this once a week or once a month or once a year, whatever your rhythm is, you're going to find out where people start responding. And for us, it was often after the 6th contact that we were getting really, really good response. And that was the 3rd email. or the second phone call just before the third email. So this is where our sweet spot is. Every company is different. And I will tell you, of all of our clients that have tried this prospecting workshop, not all of them finish it because it is long and it is frustrating and it is a lot of work. But when they do finish it, they end up with a full pipeline in 90 days. There's absolutely no exceptions to that. The people that have done it have gotten really good results, regardless of what tools they use. The main thing is the rhythm, right? And so we go into a little bit more detail about the email and the call. You can do those on the same day. And in the call, you can refer to the email and say, hey, I left you an email, or you can say, I left you a DM on LinkedIn. However you want to do that, you can say, I'm contacting you in more than one way. Why that increases your authority is because you only exist in one plane, right? You're only a one-dimensional person. If they only know you from LinkedIn, or if they only know you from email, it's really, really easy to ignore you until you start breaking that into that third dimension and start becoming a real person by doing something else, something different than what they were expecting. Does that make sense?
Like breaking the glass ceiling.
Right. Okay. Anyway, yeah. Bill Medley had a question for John. Did you see that one?
Nope. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll get back to them momentarily.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So that's why we recommend 2 different weapons, at least 2 different weapons, and at least 8 different steps. And so, we go through that in the course, and then no matter how you keep track of it, you want to make sure that you're keeping track of it, because the better you get at this, the better you will get at this. And I'm sure you guys who have been in sales for a long time are nodding your heads or shaking your heads or whatever. So, all right. Questions, thoughts about this? Does it seem, the more expensive, the longer the process.
Well, that's true, but
Yeah.
it's beyond that. They don't trust you.
Mm-hmm. They don't
And
know
you're building trust. You're building recognition of you and trust that you know what the hell you're talking about with respect to your product or service suite. And you're concerned more with their problem and how you can resolve it.
Right. I'll tell you a story.
Once they know that about you, they begin to trust you more. They'll start asking you questions. And when you get to that point, it's just a matter of time.
Right. I'm going to tell you a personal story, and John may not like it, but
Great.
Many, many years ago in a galaxy far, far away, this guy asked me out for coffee, and I said no. And my reasons for saying no were many. He worked for another consulting firm, and I thought it would look bad if we were seen going out for coffee together, Also, I was very, very busy. I was a single mom. I didn't have time for coffee, much less, a relationship or anything like that. So he asked again, about a week later, and he was always very nice about it. And he asked again, asked again, asked again, asked again, asked again. And it became a regular thing. And anyway, we ended up married. And it's actually John Williams, who we all know and love. But it took months, literally months, for me to get to the point where I trusted him that he wasn't going to try and throw me under the bus, that we weren't going to be talking about work, that he wasn't going to be trying to ask me about, company secrets or anything else. I had a lot of reasons to not trust him, but, it took time. And over that time, not only was he asking me out for coffee, we were also working together. And he had many opportunities to take credit for my ideas and do other things that I was expecting him to do, and he didn't. So he was a very good and honorable and respectable person. So if you can do this over an 8-week period with someone, and you're giving them good information, and you're being trustworthy, and you are never pushing them into something that makes them uncomfortable or anything like that, you're building that relationship. And that's what we need in the aviation industry, as opposed to many others where, you walk in to a used car place and they know if you leave, your chances of coming back are slim and none. So of course, they are going to use every means at their disposal to get you to buy right now. We are the opposite of that in the aviation industry. Most people do not have purchasing authority themselves. They're going to need to get other people's opinions, and they're going to have to get money from somewhere, and they're going to get approval and so on. So we're the complete opposite end of the spectrum from those used car salesmen you can make a decision that day, and you're the person who's making that decision, right?
Yeah, Gene makes a valid point.
Yeah.
The higher the value of the item, especially in aviation, that you're trying to sell, the longer it takes to build the trust.
Right. Exactly. So, the reaction that we almost always get when we show people this is just like, that's too long. I'm not doing that. That's too much work. But I promise you, if you do it, it will work. And if you try to shortcut it, you're going to burn a lot of leads. So,
and bridges.
Anyway. Exactly. All right. So, this is, some ideas on starting the conversation. This is the hard part, and we just did this in ChatGPT. I just pasted in John's about section, and it gave me some really good ideas about how to start a conversation. ChatGPT is great because it saves time, but it is never meant to be a substitute for your brain. Do not come off sounding like a robot. Do not use any of these straight out the bat. Do not use any cookie cutter as is, even the ones that we give you. Just very, very, very bad idea, because people get to recognize them, and they know when they're being cookie cuttered, or they know when they're being scripted. And it's insulting.
That's another thing. You may have a script.
Mm-hmm.
Be willing and able to recognize when you need to get off the script.
Mm-hmm.
And continue a normal conversation.
Right. Exactly. Okay. So, hopefully these are helpful as far as getting off of dead center. It helps me because this is the part where I get stuck. So I like to have some kind of an outline or something to start with, and then I almost never use what I wrote down. But if I've written something down, then I'm much better off than if I didn't. And this is another good reason for having a top 10, because if I only have to do 10 of these, I'm going to spend a lot more time preparing for a phone call, or preparing for a LinkedIn conversation, or preparing for, a personal letter or anything like that than I would if I were writing to 100 people this week, right? Okay.
And whatever she tells you it works, we have 10 years or more of stats that show it does or does not.
Yeah. Okay. So next is, what do you offer? When you get to the point of making an offer in your prospecting, what do you want to offer them? And that can be any number of things. A lot of us do free consultations. A lot of us do a customized report. Adila, I think you and I do a social media evaluation, something along those lines, where you're looking at what they're doing and giving them some ideas of what they could do better. And, if you sit down with us for half an hour, you're going to walk away with at least 3 good ideas, whether or not you decide to do business with us. So we're offering something that is of high value but low risk on both sides. So that could be a customized report, a trip quote, a proposal, industry insights. Here's our survey results on this topic that's of interest to you. Here is a demo that's customized with your use case. So, software demos are a dime a dozen, but if you do a demo that is specifically for them, we know you do scheduling of this type. This is how you manage this, multi-leg trips or whatever it is that is specific to them. Mark Perry lost audio. Did anybody else lose audio? Raise your hand if you can hear me. Okay, thank you.
I hear you.
I feel better. All right.
I hear you.
Thank you. Okay. So, yeah, your offer should be something like this, and it should come at step 3, step 4, step 5, whenever it seems natural to you to do that. So that is a good thing. But it is good to have an offer or two that is ready to go and that is easy and convenient for you to do. You don't want to spend forever doing this. And I know there's a lot of people, especially if you're in government contracting, you spend half your time doing proposals. And that's just not cost effective. So, if you can boilerplate those, if you can chat GPT those, if you can do whatever you need to do to make those high value but low expense on your side, is the best thing to do. Cool. Jean says, if someone new asks you, what do you do? I use my elevator speech, and it almost always gets their interest. Right. So it's great to have that response ready. Okay. On page 10 in your workbook, we have an example of how to do a better free consultation, because everybody and their dog is doing free consultations, right? So your free consultations need to be better than everybody else's free consultations. They need to walk away knowing exactly how much time they're going to spend and what information they're going to walk away from that consultation with. So I think that's really, really helpful too. If you're not getting great results from your prospecting, it could be that your offer is not attractive enough. So that might be the point that we need to work on. Any questions about offers?
I guess we all know what the hell you're talking about.
I have questions. I have a question.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent.
Okay. So we provide a service where we help people legally avoid paying the California sales tax on their aircraft and boat purchases.
Very important.
It's very niche, but I think that maybe we're going wrong in the offering the consultation. We started calling it a complimentary consultation, but we still haven't seen much like return on people really interested, like, oh, I need one of those. So maybe using like in this scenario where it's the after scenario where it says schedule a 45-minute, giving them the time frame that it would take, because it takes us about 20 minutes to pitch somebody because we have to make sure that they can qualify for this exemption.
Okay. Another thing is the title. So what you call it, a complimentary consultation?
Yeah.
Suggest titles for a complimentary consultation that includes what? An evaluation of your tax situation?
Yeah, it's usually an evaluation of if they can legally avoid the sales tax, if we can actually make that exemption work for them.
California sales tax on your aircraft, right?
Mm-hmm.
I apologize for my typing.
That's okay.
Sometimes having a good title is the best thing in the world that you can do.
Right.
So let's see what it does. Maximize your savings, a complimentary consultation on California sales tax for your aircraft, a tax saving opportunity, get a free So any of these, sometimes they're crap, sometimes they're not bad.
Number 3 or 4 look good to me. I had an aircraft in this situation, so I could have used you, okay?
Right. Yeah, no, this
it's like
is
getting
good.
in front of the right people and saying things like this that would make people be like, oh, I actually need that.
Exactly. And then you can get, because you're actually selling this, right? You can actually advertise for this. This is outside of prospecting, but we're kind of diverging from the topic a little bit. Please write an email pitching this free consultation. And I spelled consultation wrong. Hopefully it won't. And it will actually do it for you. Sometimes, as I said, it works better than others, but we'll see what it does.
And even when she says it works better than others, she's not using the free version, are you? You're using the paid version?
I am using the paid version, but it's exactly the same, except that this is more reliable.
Yeah.
The other one times out a lot. Okay. So this doesn't stink as a starting point. Again, this is advertising. This is not prospecting. Right. So I would not use this for prospecting. I would use this for advertising further up the chain.
Okay.
And things like that. But and then we'll get back.
Again, use this. Don't use it like it sits. Make sure you edit.
Yes.
Aggressively edit.
Aggressively edit, please. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, that's like our worst fear is that somebody takes our advice and does exactly what we say. Don't do that. Make sure that it fits your business and your model and everything else. Okay. So, any other questions about your offer and when and how to use it? I usually, it usually becomes pretty clear from the conversation. You go back and forth a couple of times with somebody. And again, ours is usually after the second email or the second round of LinkedIn conversations, that they say, hey, can you help us with this? Yes, I have a 31-point checklist for your website. This is something that we can help you with. So often they will ask for it before you offer it. But, you just want to make sure that you're gentle with your offer and that you've built a little bit of rapport before you make your offer, even if it's a free consultation or whatever. Good so far? Okay, we're running out of time, so we'll carry on. All right, so holding pattern. Michael, if you're still with us, this is what you want to talk about.
I'm here.
Okay. Great. So, coming off of this, you've given a free consultation. They are probably not ready to buy yet. In fact, a lot of people try to close during their consultation. Some people have good luck with that. Some people don't. I never have. And that's mostly because when people do business with us, they need to think about it. They need to consult with someone. They need to get, their finances figured out. So they go into a holding pattern, which for us was always 8.5 months until recently. I think it's shorter than that now, but we'd have to calculate it. John, do you have any idea what our holding pattern is now?
It's significantly shorter now. For some reason, over the last 6 months, is less than about half that.
Right. Our team has done a fantastic job. Thank you, Adila, and anyone else that's on the call of, shortening our holding pattern. But it's still a long time. And, what you can include in a holding pattern are things like tip sheets, books, visits. If you are, like whenever we go to NBAA in Orlando, we do kind of a round robin of the United States and visit clients and prospects that are on the way, since we're doing a road trip anyway. And we, go visit their location and things like that, sit down with them. We do phone calls, we do newsletters. Print newsletters are making a big comeback in the aviation industry, which is really cool. Print is still great in the United States. If you're outside the United States, I don't recommend it because, deliverability is a problem. But in the US, it's still a bargain when you look at it because the response rates are great. It has higher credibility than email. And so a once a month or a quarterly printed newsletter is a fantastic idea. A regular email, whether that's weekly, monthly, quarterly. Doing this in pattern builds credibility more than doing it ad hoc. So if you do it only when you feel like it, you're only going to build credibility to a certain point. But if you do it in a pattern, like we do emails every single Monday at the same time, and our open rate has gone up to about 25% from about 12%. So doing it at the same time every week, this can be, whether it's here's our tip of the week, here's our, whatever it is. Building a relationship with somebody means being consistent. So that was like John showing up at my desk every day about 10 o'clock, saying, hey, how are things going? Should we go out for coffee? And it got to be a regular thing. And I expected it. And I missed him if he didn't show up, even though I was telling him no. So, this is something that you can establish a pattern and, that really helps build your credibility. And then sales, when we get into sales, we talk about things like objections, money objections, the negotiation process, all of that stuff. And weirdly, in the aviation industry, by the time we get to this point, everybody's got it pretty much nailed. Everybody that we work with, all of our clients are fantastic negotiators. They don't need much help once we get to this point. But, prospecting is one of the tough spots. And the holding pattern is a tough spot as well. Keeping that going for 8 months without repeating yourself or becoming boring, or driving yourself crazy, is hard. So, that's one of the things that we spend our marketing lab doing with people, is building a holding pattern and building the pieces that go into that holding pattern.
Hey, Paula?
Yeah.
Bill's got a question you might want to address at least lightly here.
Okay.
Do you think recommendation from prior customers is a good component to add to offers? I'm not sure it is at the prospecting level, or does that fact that Delta uses our product turn off United or other competitors?
Okay. I think that is great to include in all of your advertising materials and in all of your marketing pattern materials. When we were sending out a printed newsletter, which we need to consider again, John, we had on the back of it, before you even open it, these are the companies we're doing business with, and all of the logos on there. So we put it in a really prominent position in one of our holding pattern pieces. We also had it in a pretty prominent, we now also have it in a very prominent position on our website and other places, because aviation is huge they love not being the first to use a product or service. And they also love it when they can beat their competitors to something. So, if you tell them all of your competitors are doing this except you, they don't want to be left out. So, that's an interesting thing too. Okay. Other questions, problems? I'm going to stay on the line for as long as there are questions or problems. And Michael, we can go back and talk some more about holding pattern. If anybody else has any questions, I'm entertaining those for another probably 20 minutes or so before my next meeting. But I know some of you guys have obligations that you need to get to. So I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much for being here. Our prospecting workshop is actually $200 off through the end of today. And our ChatGPT course comes with it. So that is now $579 through the end of the day. And it goes up to $779 after today. We do spend quite a bit of time with you on that. So it's a really great deal, I think, because it gives you all of the cookie cutters that you should not use, but should start with. And also the worksheet that you can track whether or not you're using a CRM. Some people use the worksheet anyway, because it makes it super clear how your prospecting is going and which are your most successful steps of your prospecting process. And then we also give you a consultation to go with that, so that we can help you fix the weak spots and get that humming along as it should be. So filling your pipeline within the first 90 days is the objective of the course, and keeping your pipeline full is really the long-term outcome of that. Great. All right. So going back to our holding pattern. Oh, yeah. One other thing I need to tell you before we sign off, and that is, if you get into our marketing lab, you get all of our courses free. We include all of them with any level of our marketing lab. The only difference between those really is gold level includes the LeadFeeder product. And, of course, platinum and titanium include a lot more custom work, where we do a lot of your pieces for you. We write your newsletter for you. We write your content for your website. We do a lot of those kinds of things in a done for you sort of way. All right. So back to the holding pattern. Let's go back there. Michael, I kind of gave you the bird's eye view. What can we dive in on?
One of the questions is tools. So do you use just a spreadsheet? Do you have little 3x5 cards to keep track of people and where you're at in the process? one-page CRM. A lot of my friends that are in software use HubSpot, but that's, a fancy, funnel type tool. So part of it is I have trouble keeping track of who's due to be contacted again and what did we last do? And so, keeping track of it is part of the problem.
Right. If Gene's still on the line, he's a big fan of Zoho. Let's see, who else do we have on the line? I don't know if anybody wants to chime in on that.
Yeah, I am still in line, and you're on to something there that is one of those big issues that I too have a little lag in getting done. Zoho will automate it for you. I can tell you I've been with Zoho for about 9 years, and I haven't figured out the automation part of it yet. But it is there. And the other thing that they were talking about, and that is the marketing holding pattern. It's amazing. I do a monthly newsletter, and I just had somebody come back after 3 years. And it's
fantastic.
You got to do something on a regular basis. And no, I didn't even recognize that Paula and John's comes out once a week on Mondays. I just open it when it shows up. Yeah. But I will now be watching for it on Mondays, so don't give up. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah. But the issue out there is there's some mighty expensive programs. Salesforce is expensive. They're really good. Paula and John used to use Intuit or something like that.
Oh, we used Infusionsoft, and before that we used SharpSpring. And now we're actually using MailChimp because they have added CRM features and some automation that do it for us much less expensively than the others. And we're not a huge company. So, but we do have flight schools that swear by the bigger CRMs, and others that, have a pretty high volume and they have multiple salespeople and things like that. If you got multiple salespeople, Salesforce is the only real way to count those multi-level commissions and things. Maybe HubSpot does too. I don't know. Was that Dallas that was using HubSpot? Yeah,
we use HubSpot.
I've used Salesforce and I hate it with a passion.
Okay,
it's horrible.
Don't tell anybody else.
Me too, Mike. I don't like it either.
I mean, I understand it's an enterprise level software suite.
Yeah.
But it feels like an old mainframe application. It is just clunky and horrible to use, from my opinion. HubSpot has a free version, but I'm just not sure that I want to invest the time to learn it. I've used one-page CRM, and I love the simplicity of it, but it's less automated, and that's, I guess, comes with the simplicity. But it's a great little tool because it's all focused on what's the next step, what is the next action, and you only focus on the next action for that particular lead, and so it can keep track of every lead and what the next step is, but it doesn't have as much automation and email integration and, hey, somebody looked at my website and so it pops up and says you ought to follow up with this person. But HubSpot does all of that stuff, so it's a really cool tool, but it just seems like so much. It's like taking the Lamborghini out to go get some milk at the 7-Eleven or something.
Right. And most of the CRMs will integrate with LeadFeeder. So if that's a concern, that is easily solved. I would say they're getting to be more like each other than they used to be. It used to be that like MailChimp was a email sender, and HubSpot was a CRM, and never the two shall meet. But I think HubSpot, Infusionsoft, Salesforce have all gotten more email sending capability, and things like Constant Contact and MailChimp have gotten more CRM capabilities. So they're moving toward each other. if you are looking for, good reports and a nice front end interface, then, I think HubSpot or MailChimp are probably some of my favorites. But
do you have any internal targets for MailChimp on opening rates and click-throughs?
Yeah. In fact, that's what I use, to determine click-throughs and everything else. And also, another tip that I use from MailChimp is I look at the number of people who clicked on a link in one of my emails, and those become better candidates for my top 10 list. So it's really, really good for using as a CRM, and you can put in the ticklers and other things, automate your emails going out and so on.
But I mean, if you get 10%, 20%, what number makes you feel warm and fuzzy?
Well, I used to feel warm and fuzzy at 10%, and I still feel warm and fuzzy at 10% for some of our clients that we haven't been working with for very long. In fact, I feel warm and fuzzy at 5% for some of our clients that we haven't been working with for very long. We're at 25%, which is, I think,
astounding.
I'm kind of astonished by it, but, we've been working on it for 10 years to get to this point. So, and some of our clients are very close to that, but we've been working for a long time to get there. But in the first year or 90 days of working together, if we get to 10%, I think we're happy, right?
Yep.
It also depends on the size of your list. If you add a ton, like if you just dumped a bunch of junk leads into a list because, you hosted an event that was maybe off topic for you, then you're going to have a lower open rate and things like that. So it's not the only thing to look at, but it certainly is one that makes me feel warm and fuzzy at night. So that's a good thing. Yeah. Other questions about holding pattern or anything else that we talked about today?
No, but I'll circle back to Mike for a minute. That I used the ACT software back when the only way you could get it was in a 5.25-inch disc. So it's like 1986, 1987 timeframe until 2017 when I unfortunately was hacked. So I went to online and I did a lot of research. Zoho costs you what? For a year of Zoho, it costs you 1 month's worth of Salesforce, just for comparison. And then I just looked at that HubSpot and I thought, whoa, that's kind of up there too. But it's interesting because trying to get some seemingly simple things done, and you got to be careful you don't do it at a great expense.
Yeah,
that's. And your other point there, Mike, holy smokes, the learning curve and the time you have to put into it, even going from ACT that I'd used for 15 or 20 years to Zoho, it's like falling off the railroad tracks. That putting the cars back on the track was not that simple.
Yeah.
So I totally get it.
We almost killed our ROI the first, 3 years we were in business because we were paying for Infusionsoft and we were actually too small to justify that expense at the time. It's great software, was great software at the time. It's since been acquired and things have happened, but it was great software at the time, but we were spending so much money on it that we just about killed our return on investment for that reason. We were spending so much money on software. So it's easy to do. It's like $20 here, add this feature, $20 there, X a month, X a month, X a month, X a month. Pretty soon you're paying $400 a month for, as a startup for CRM software when your list is 100 people. That's insane. So highly recommend not doing that.
Yeah, and I agree with you, Gene. The HubSpot is only of interest to me because I have a lot of friends that use it and they know it well. But I'm only interested in the free version, which is free for life. It just means I have some limitations, things that it doesn't do. The other piece, as you mentioned, is the learning curve. And I'm just not sure I have the bandwidth to come up to speed on the learning curve, and I may just continue to use, a spreadsheet or something to, track the, just enter, I met with them on this date and here's what we talked about, or here's where I sent them an email, and just track it. But I already have a MailChimp account. Maybe I'll look into the CRM integration piece, Paula.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, it needs to be, simple. And that's part of the problem is these things are both, they add features, which increases complexity, which means that you increase the investment to come up to speed. But from their standpoint, once you've made the investment, you have a high probability that you're not going to make an investment in a new platform. And so they've got you locked in.
Yes.
Part of it is, they've got you.
Yeah, we've got
Mike,
clients who are stuck. Yeah.
Yeah. If Zoho ever goes out of business, so will I.
No, Gene. No, we do have clients that are really literally being held hostage by their CRM, and we're looking for solutions for them all the time. Yeah. That's one of the things we do with consulting. But Michael, since you're in our marketing lab, you have access to the spreadsheet I was talking about in the prospecting workshop. So you can start with that. If you've got 10 at a time, it is very manageable in a spreadsheet. I do recommend an email sending software just so that we're in compliance with the CAN-SPAM Act and you're building your list and all of those things. But as far as the CRM goes, I would say simpler is better until we get to a certain size. And you can always move from simpler to more complex. It is much harder to move from a Salesforce to a MailChimp than it is to move from a MailChimp to a Salesforce.
Good point.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is the company grows, you get somebody else to do the work of the new software. I just need something to get us through the current stage.
Right.
Cool.
Exactly.
Thanks for the help. Appreciate
no problem. Yeah, we've got a whole article on CRMs. It is about a year old, but I think it's still good information for the most part. I'll send you that as well. That's kind of fun. It goes into the pros and cons of all of our favorites and not favorites.
Good. Thank you.
Yeah. Great. Anything else? Anybody else want to chime in about what you learned today? Everybody learned something? Yeah.
Well, I think it's good advice to remember you might be churning a lot of people's names, but that top 10 is where you probably should spend your time until you wear them out and then move on to another group.
Right. Yep. And, that's another question, I guess, that we didn't answer is when do you move them off? And, my theory is as long as they've got the money, authority, and need, if any of those things changes, you move them off. If none of those things changes, keep them on for, like I said, 8 months. However long your sales process is, and then some, because you never know. And like Gene's sales cycle is 3 years. People buy a new airplane every 3 years. They call Gene, right? So he has to keep people in his holding pattern for years at a time, and does a great job of it too. All right, thank you so much. You guys have a lovely rest of the afternoon, and thank you for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon, hopefully.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.